Hey there, if you're a beauty founder, wellness professional, or a healthcare provider building a brand, I made something special just for you. You already have the results, the credentials, the products, the testimonials, the loyal customers. You're credible. You've built something that works. But if your visibility and your revenue still don't reflect the excellence of your work, it's not your offer. The online landscape has changed. The attention economy is fading. And the brands growing fastest right now aren't chasing algorithms, they're owning authority. In my free masterclass, The Authority Era: How to Become an Influential Name in Beauty and Wellness and Attract More Customers, I will show you how to shift from attention to authority and how to use credibility as the engine that drives sustainable growth for the long term. Watch the Authority Era Masterclass free at factorpr.com/authority, and you can find the link in the show notes below. What makes a story unforgettable? And how can storytelling be the single most powerful tool to grow your brand? In this episode of Grow Your Wealth, journalist and content strategist Alexandra Frost takes us behind the scenes of media and brand storytelling. From writing for the New York Times and Parents to helping brands shape their content strategies, Alex shares what makes a pitch irresistible, how to repurpose content for maximum impact, and why thought leadership is the currency of today's content landscape. We also dig into the rise of AI in writing, how it's helping, how it's hurting, and why authentic storytelling still wins. Plus, Alex opens up about her own health battle and the lessons she has learned and wants to share about balance, asking for help, and leading with purpose. If you've ever wondered how to stand out in a crowded online world, this conversation will give you clarity and confidence to do just that. One of my favorites. Here's Alex. Alex, welcome to Grow Your Wealth. It's so great to have you here today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
It's an honor. I know we talk a lot about brand growth here on the show, and you are such an expert in storytelling. I would love if you could share a little bit about your journey and why you got into journalism, storytelling, and how you've made this so powerful for your clients.
Sure. Thank you. Yes, I'm a longtime journalist. I'm in Cincinnati. This is my 20th year in the industry, which is aging me, I guess. And I've worked with major, national publications, and then also now do half of my time in content strategy and brand positioning. And some of that lends to content marketing writing as well. So definitely still doing writing across the board. But yes, storytelling is so important right now, more than ever, obviously, especially in the AI, spike in the time that we're in. People are really valuing and craving authenticity and genuine connection in their stories and the ones they read and the ones they tell. And you can tell that everybody is just drawn to real stories right now. And that coupled with our, continually waning attention spans, we need stories that quickly get to the heart of the matter and are engaging right from the first few words. So it's actually a great time to be a writer and a strategist because, sometimes we only have 5 words that really count to hook someone into a story. But yeah, I think everyone's programmed to look for authenticity and scan for what is real and not real right now.
I could not agree more. And then from your perspective, I'd love to hear, what do you think makes a great story? And is it a great story when you're wearing your journalism hat and a great story when you're wearing your content marketing hat? Are they the same?
Yes. I mean, I think the elements of a great story are really similar. I don't know if you've seen the hero's journey, but the hero's journey, we still all go back to. And, some of us learned that in maybe 7th grade English class originally, if you had a great English teacher, but the hero's journey is still something we're drawn to. We want to see that challenge and that overcoming. We want to see real personality behind a leading character and what they struggle with internally and externally. And we want to feel connected to them. Along the way, from a PR aspect, there's obviously research and data and stats and real world trends that kind of have to feed into that story's narrative. So those are all elements that I think people are drawn to. And like I said, with the authenticity, they want to feel connected to that character, but also be grounded in real proven research and studies and trends that are local to them and national.
Let's dig a little bit deeper since you mentioned on the PR side of things, the journalism side of things. I know for a lot of people, whether they are trying to get coverage or their story shared organically or through an agency or whatever means necessary, word on the street is that it is getting a little bit more challenging. And I think that a lot of that, there could be a lot of reasons, right? Just, more discernment from the writers, things along those lines. Could you tell us, what are you looking for as of, fall 2025, not necessarily something that's trending, but how are you making decisions on like, what is a story worth telling beyond having the elements of the hero's journey, like you just talked about? Are there things that you're keeping your eyes open for in particular?
Yes, definitely. I feel like when I work with media professionals and PRs, I feel like the statistics and the research and the meaty parts of a trend are always buried a little too far down. And I'm always saying, bring up the numbers, bring them to the top. Is there new surveys? Is there new data? Is there a small anecdote that connects to a larger trend that you can prove that what you're saying is part of a bigger conversation? Those are all important things. Novelty is always great. So if there's a slightly different take on something we've heard before, or we've never heard this before, that is always of interest. And then we've heard it a million times, but relevant to the current news cycle, the research should be really new. Sometimes I'm getting pitches that are like, here's a new trend, or here's a new piece of research or a survey, but it's really, 6 months old or more. So it's not super new. So people's idea of what is quick, relevant, timely news peg is kind of shortening a bit. And then like we talked about with a leading character, having someone that we can connect to whose story just has to be told is usually pretty irresistible as well. But yeah, it's getting harder for both the journalists and the publicists. I agree. There's a lot more AI generated garbage to weed through on all ends, but also, publications are sometimes in turnover and turmoil, And so, I've had pitches that I accept and we do the interview, we go all the way through editing, and then the editor turns over a couple days before publishing and they're like, all this was for nothing. And I'm like, yes, but so that's why it's good to be freelance, because I'm constantly finding other opportunities for people.
Wow. You bring up such a great point as well, too, about AI. I actually went to an event yesterday where a member of this community had said that being on local TV had really, really helped their business. And so I got very curious about it and just asked a few questions like, congratulations, tell us more about how you did it. And they said they went to good old ChatGPT, right? And they're like, ChatGPT, we know AI is really, really changing the game on one side of the fence while it's making things maybe a little bit easier. I'm sure in your world, it's also making things harder because you kind of have to like sift through that AI generated responses or pitches and things like that, to be able to get to the root of a good story. Can you tell as a writer when something has been AI generated and hits in your inbox? And are you just like immediately like, no, thank you? What does that look like day in and day out? Because you must get hundreds of pitches a day.
I do. Yes, I do get hundreds of pitches. As it goes, sometimes I can't get past the subject line because it's so AI generated garbage. But I don't automatically rule something out because it's AI, because I think AI can be a great starting place for everyone, publicists alike. And if they're starting with a pitch and putting it into AI and, modifying it from there to sound like a human, and it's really meaningful and has, great statistics and surveys and data, we can't necessarily tell if it started with AI or if parts of it are from AI. So I'm not so concerned about that as the quality of what's in it. So no, I don't think I would delete a pitch if I am, if I'm worried that AI was involved just on an ethical level. It's more if there are missing elements or it does sound like a robot that's just getting, mass sent out with no relevance to what I cover. So it's kind of the same rules as always, but just slightly different. And I think that basically having the subject line be relevant, but also not be impersonating anything else. I'm getting a lot of pitches where it looks like an editor is assigning work, but it's from a publicist. And that's, and it's little simple tweaks, like it'll say, profile featuring so-and-so. And I also get editor emails with that similar phrasing, or are you up for a story about X? And I also get editor emails assigning things like that. So that type of thing is kind of a deterrent because it just feels tricky. But other than that, I think that just the original pitch format where there's strong data, strong storytelling, and clear, bio and link to the SMEs is really important. I do spend a lot of time, trying to figure out what a platform or a client or a product is. So anything that can make that easier and quicker is always great. Because sometimes I'll read a pitch, I'll love it, and I'll be like, wait, what is this thing? And I'll have to go find out. And if I have the time and I'm really interested, I do go find out. But sometimes I have to just move on because they're not clearly presenting what it is or who it is and why it's relevant.
Yes, we always say clear is kind, especially when you don't have a lot of time or you're a busy journalist. Right. So
exactly.
That absolutely makes sense. You mentioned that you are specifically a freelance writer. Could you explain what that means? Like, what does your day-to-day look like? Because it's different than an editor, right? So what is your relationship with the editors? How do you tend to work? Take us behind the scenes a little bit.
Sure. I work on assignments from editors that I've built relationships with, and I also pitch editors at different publications when I see a specific fit. So it's some assigning from them and some outreach from me. But, relationships are at the core of it, like everything. And over time, the more I, prove myself to those editors, the more they come back to me for different things. So that is kind of what freelance life is like. I do constantly market myself. So I'm always reaching out to other people on LinkedIn and looking for new publications and places to write because, like I said about the market, one day, I would say at least once a month, a key editor or publication either folds or changes management there. I have a new editor contact, and usually that comes with some delay in, transitioning. So I'm constantly looking for places that, want to produce high quality content and still need writers.
Absolutely. And something that we've seen a lot lately, of course, even some of the editors that we worked with previously that were on staff are now freelancing. I would say the vast majority of the folks that we are pitching are freelancers, at least freelancers in some capacity. In the journalism space. Similarly, a lot, including yourself, have really made a name for themselves as content marketing specialists too. So in addition to writing about brands as a journalist, you're also supporting a lot of brands on the ground as kind of their chief communications person. Tell us a little bit about how you kind of work in those two capacities. What is the difference between your content marketing hat as well as your journalism hat?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I do keep them very separate, so that I'm not ever, seen as a journalist as representing a brand in any way or working for them. So, for example, I would never be pitching actively to editors a brand that I was basically on their team as a consultant for brand positioning and content strategy. I also don't outwardly pitch in any sort of communications publicist role. So I can advise brands on their pitches or their communications, but then I'm not the face or the name that they're outwardly, reaching out to journalists about. So those are some of the ethical boundaries that I kind of draw. Some of them might be old school boundaries at this point because people are blurring all kinds of lines, but old school, like journalism school training, not blurring those lines is super important. And it's served me well till this point. So I'll probably continue with that. But yeah, so brands that come to me often need to figure out who they are, what they're doing, what their, who their who their audiences are, and what they should be doing in this world where like content is it's everywhere. They have so many options on where to spend their money. And some of them are doing a little bit of everything and not really sure why they're doing any of it. And they've sort of lost sight of the mission behind what are they really trying to accomplish? And are they intentionally steering their leads towards, these clear CTAs of what they want to do next. So those are typically the people that come to me and need refocused. They need new brand positioning, and then they need a content strategy. Sometimes they need help with the actual execution. So I'll end up writing thought leadership pieces, LinkedIn posts, blogs, articles, ebooks, different deliverables like that. But yeah, a lot of it is that big picture planning at the beginning. And then I work as a consultancy, not an agency on that side of my business. So I bring in talent as needed, and I connect them directly with the client. So publicists, graphic designers, SEO specialists, or now I guess GEO specialists as well with AI. So basically I'm connecting them as that need comes up in their business journey versus sort of having all that under my own umbrella. So I'm always looking for people to sort of add to that talent bench that I recommend to the clients when they need it.
I love that. You're such an influencer. That's so cool.
Thanks.
Tell us a little bit about that as well, too. What kind of brands are you working with? Any type of industries in particular?
I work a lot with health brands, health and wellness brands. I'm working with a perinatal spa and perinatal specialists. I have worked with lots of doctors and healthcare professionals. I helped ghostwrite a book for a pediatrician who ended up on the USA Today bestseller list. I was very excited for her, and she is in holistic pediatrician, for parents basically. And I also, outside of healthcare, work with entrepreneurs, CEOs, business owners who are in lots of different fields. I've seen a lot of mental health, technology. It's kind of a variety pack. So I don't have any industry where I'm like, no, I can't help you, because some of those same brand positioning and content strategy processes are very similar regardless of the industry. So I am kind of a generalist in that way.
That makes a lot of sense. Let's talk a little bit about AI again. I know we briefly touched on it in the journalism space. Now, on the thought leadership, brand positioning, content marketing space, in the PR world, we are seeing thought leadership kind of make a comeback, so to speak, right? When it comes to GEO and getting discovered via AI. What are your thoughts on this, or best practices around this? I know it's such a hot topic as of lately, right? Like, people are going to search to get, a list of results. People are going to AI with an intent, right? They're searching for something like to solve a problem. Do you have any best practices that you've seen on your end or on behalf of your clients on how we can kind of lean into AI discovery from a thought leadership angle, say as a doctor or as an expert in their field?
Yeah. Thought leadership is having a great moment. We're all really excited about it in the content world because it makes space for actual industry leaders to have their voice and their opinions out there versus having to swim through, loads of AI generated content, or before AI, just kind of SEO generated fluffy content. So it is a great time for thought leaders to make sure they are getting clear on their content strategy and what they have to say. So they're not just randomly posting things without any real plan. So that is my first advice, is to make sure you're clear on your content pillars and your target audiences and who you're trying to say what to, because that can get really muddy in the day-to-day. Once that's set up, I think generating some documents around your own voice is really important if you're going to be using AI to help with that leadership. So as much as you can feed the AI machine that you are using with your own voice, if someone is going to be, say, trying to generate a batch of LinkedIn posts to start with, teaching it what the style and voices that you're going for is really important. I'm seeing a lot of thought leaders, CEOs trying to use AI without really having the back work or the documentation to give it to make it produce something that's actually helpful. And then they're like, oh, AI is not good. AI is not good for this. And of course, I will always value a human voice over AI. So I'm not saying go use AI for all this over a human, but some people are on a budget and they do need to do that. So for people that are trying to generate thought leadership content with AI, it's just all about the work you've done to feed it what you're trying to get back out of it. So what examples are you giving it of your own voice? And once you're creating stuff, are you putting it back into the same machine to generate so it can learn farther what your voice is? From there, I would say don't trust anything that it's generating and check all the backlinks and the research. Obviously, we've all seen the numbers of how much hallucinations are still a problem. I recently had a friend do checking 50 backlinks that it had provided, and 80% of them were incorrect or went to a super non-reputable source, like a blog that's been dead for 10 years. So, and some of them just go to a 404 error page. So definitely not relying on AI for research in most cases, with at least without checking it, is still recommended. When it comes to creating content on your other platforms, like your blog and so on, authentic content with real SMEs in your own business is really still helpful and can position you as, you know, something that AI wants to look to when we're talking about SEO and GEO. Having those subject matter experts contributing to your articles and your other content positions you above other kind of fluffy AI generated stuff that doesn't have real voices, that have reputable, you know, degrees and MDs and so on behind their name. So I would like to see more brands, you know, put more time and effort into building their board of experts, their medical board, building up their SMEs and how they're willing to position them to contribute to content. I know it's always hard to get SMEs to have enough time, energy, et cetera, to be a part of content production, but super important in a world where not everybody has that.
Those are fantastic tips, by the way. Thank you for sharing those, because I think that people are just moving so quickly. And, you know, one of the big challenges I see on my end as well, too, especially working closely with different types of brands, is that they're really trying to do all of the things. And it can be really hard, especially if your budget maybe is a little bit smaller, your team's a little bit smaller. Like, my God, who's going to do all of the things?
Right.
But something that you said just really set the record straight, right? Where thought leadership and building your own kind of brand library of content is one lever that you can pull as, say, a business owner that can really multiply an impact, wouldn't you say? I mean, like, one blog post, one LinkedIn post can be repurposed across multiple different channels. Would you agree with that?
Yes, and I have yet to have a client or see a brand where there is not room to grow on repurposing. I still think people are buying and investing in great content that is not being fully repurposed, because we've all heard the word repurposing for so long that we think we're doing it when we copy, you know, and change a little between social media platforms, or we put our LinkedIn, you know, an expanded version of a LinkedIn post onto our blog. We think we've checked the box, but there are so many more steps that our content, you know, if you have high quality content with SME voices in it, there's so many more steps that people aren't thinking of, and ways that you can pull out pull quotes and use them in case studies and on your website, and other things that are just not really being fully used. So, you know, the whole like juice, lemon squeeze, whatever that phrase is that you like to use, I think that people are really kind of falling short of getting the most bang for their buck with repurposing content.
Hi, friends. I want to tell you about our new and improved authority accelerator from Factor PR called RealFluence. RealFluence is the only membership that helps beauty and wellness founders grow their reputation and authority to attract new customers without endless discounting, advertising, or going viral. Inside, you'll learn how to get recognized for your product or your expertise, partner with other founders, and become the name people trust and talk about, all with the guidance and community to support you every step of the way. Remember, you can't buy authority. You have to earn it. And RealFluence is here to help. Visit therealfluence.com to get started. Yeah, we have definitely seen that in the past too. Are you able to share any best practices around that too? What are some of like the most underutilized ways that, let's say we start with a blog, for example, or even a piece of press coverage? What are some creative ways that brands can kind of maximize their impact with that one piece of press coverage or that one piece of thought leadership?
Yeah, I literally just got off a call right before this with a CEO, and I was teaching him about part to whole and whole to part. So people think that if they have an entire piece of content, that all the ideas in that piece need to be repurposed in the second piece of content. And that's not at all true. So there might be one paragraph, say from a blog, that actually should be expanded on, just that one paragraph, into a LinkedIn post. Or there might be a single line from an SME that becomes some amazing, really short video on social media. So there's ways to think of part to whole and whole to part, where you can move back and forth between the two. And you don't have to take the whole content and create another whole piece with all of those same thoughts in it. So I would encourage people to kind of think through, are there single pieces of content, like a really impactful quote that need to live somewhere else and be expanded on? And that also applies to when someone has landed press coverage. Like, where are you using that pull quote that, this brand owner has landed in a publication? Where else are you putting that and expanding on your quote and positioning yourself as an expert to also display that media coverage?
I love that. I couldn't agree more. And similarly, I see brands, and that's something that we work closely with our clients on, is getting as much juice out of the squeeze, right?
I was thinking of you with this lemon and juice quote. We can never get it right.
My husband, if he listens to this, will be cracking up because he makes fun of me for saying that. But, an example that I give, right, is like, if you're a New York Times bestseller, you made the list, that's not something you're ever going to say, oh, honey, that was last year, right? Like, you're like, wait a minute, that's like huge, right? Like, that is valuable leverage and valuable positioning that we should be using across all of your marketing to get another book deal, right? And the same thing goes with thought leadership, is it really comes down to your positioning, your perspective. I mean, that's kind of your IP, right? So when you think about too, the opportunity that so many business owners, so many subject matter experts and so forth have to differentiate themselves, I think we look to things like social media followers and, the best branding, the best website. These are all important. But, they might not be enough to kind of utilize as your secret sauce to get yourself differentiated and ultimately elevated in your industry. It really comes down to like, what's between your two ears, right?
Right. Absolutely. I'm constantly talking about distinguishing factors, differentiators with my clients, trying to help them understand that how they're saying something and what they're saying that isn't like everyone else needs to be amplified everywhere. Sometimes they get bogged down in imposter syndrome or feeling like their voice is one in a sea of many, which is, true sometimes. So I would say that, anyone trying to DIY their brand positioning right now really needs to look into what are their distinguishers and how are they communicating those across all their platforms frequently and assertively, and confidently.
That makes a lot of sense. And since you're on the front lines, Alex, really helping brands decide, should they pursue content strategy, press coverage, since you wear both of these hats, is there like a good formula for that? Like, really focusing in on the thought leadership and then going deep with the press coverage? Should you be doing both at the same time? Just kind of speaking of budget and priority, do you see one way or another working best, or is it dependent on, the client?
Yeah. I mean, you and I have seen that working together where, if someone doesn't have that brand positioning and their true mission and target audience narrowed down, the press part becomes difficult, slower, something that needs work through first. So I always encourage people to do brand positioning and content strategy first and then move to publicity, which is why I kind of have that, talent bench where I'm able to recommend people when it's time. And also, it's usually reassuring to brands to know that they don't have to do all of this at once. So maybe the brand positioning does come first and then the content strategy and then press. For some people, it's a different order, but I think that it's super important to have that set up. And usually you can tell pretty quickly how well someone is able to give a 1-minute elevator pitch about what they do, who they serve, what their distinguishers are. So really in 1 minute or less, I can usually tell if they are ready to move towards press or if they have a lot of, or a little bit of background work to do with that brand positioning and content strategy. And also if they feel like they are doing A colleague that does content strategy yesterday on LinkedIn, she called it busy work. She's like, if you feel like there's busy work or there's just stuff everywhere, content that's not organized, and you don't really feel like you're doing it on purpose or with a clear goal or mission, and you don't have a process for it, that typically is a good sign. And also, I like to have teams have support build up before they start to implement press, because sometimes they'll become overwhelmed, especially with great publicists like yourself, when they get press, that they will not really have the support to fully implement, and repurpose the coverage they are getting. And also to make sure they're able to take on all the interview opportunities that you bring, because they have so much other stuff to do. So sometimes a step right before that is we help them get a social media manager to take that off their plate. Some of them need to hire some assistants or some other team members, project managers. So once they have that structure built out for their brand, especially if they're a newer brand and they don't have that structure, then we're able to bring in press and really optimize it and not have them feeling like, oh, I spent this money and wasn't really able to fully engage with it.
I hope everyone hears that very loud and clear, because that is so...
Say it again and louder.
Say it again and louder.
Right.
It's so important. It's so important before you start outsourcing something like publicity. You really do have to be ready for it. And that's, not just emotionally ready for it, of course, but the, kind of behind the scenes operational side of things, because that's something that we're always looking out for, is like, can this brand handle it right now? Because that can also, like, on the publicist side of things, damage our relationships, right? We're pitching and we're like, I don't know where this client is, right? Which we used to see that, more in the past. I had one client that we counted 15 media opportunities we secured, and then they could not do the interview, which, that was awful. So
for everybody.
Yes. Yeah. A great
deadline all the way down. Yep.
All the way down. Yes. That was tough, but hopefully definitely a good learning experience for us. Great learning experience for the client as well too. And just kind of working through those things. So that is so important, because you're right. All of these things, as we talked about before, that brands are now kind of responsible for, can be overwhelming. But speaking of overwhelm, Alex, okay, so you are a journalist, you are a brand positioning content expert, you're also a mother, you have a busy household, little children, all of these things. Do you face overwhelm as well too? Here at Grow Your Wealth, we talk a lot about burnout. What does that look like for you? How are you juggling all of these things right now?
Yes, great question. No one has the right answer or a good answer, I don't think, but we all keep trying. I do have 5 kids, ages 10 down to 2, and I'm running my own business and have around 3 part-time team members on my team. So it can be a lot. I think the secret is basically just doing work that you really love and believe in and you find fulfilling. The old saying that work shouldn't feel like work is very true for me every day. I was a teacher my first 10 years of my career, in my young 20s, and did have some burnout with that. There were so many systems in place that, made it difficult. Teachers are not well paid as much as they should be. There's huge expectations. So I think I had burnout in my last career, and this is my, sort of revival, remake, clamation, that's not a word, of my my talents and what I want to be doing. And I still have that teaching element when I'm working with brands, but it's basically being able to design your own schedule is super important. Being able to move your body at the right times through the day for you, and making, food. I have full-time daycare and some of my kids are in school. So some people ask how I do it. And I think they're picturing like these toddlers running around my house, but that's absolutely not possible. Tried that for a while and that doesn't work. So I think that basically implementing supports wherever possible, and I know some of that is expensive, is the only way that I've been able to do it. I have a super supportive husband who's able to kind of jump in and do pickup of the kids if something is running over, but also drawing some clear boundaries. I really don't work nights or weekends. Unless somebody across the world says they need to meet at 9 p.m. randomly, but I do have some of those boundaries in place. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. I don't feel burnout. I don't feel like I'm heading towards burnout. But it is a lot about choices and balance and, kind of pushing yourself to eat a real meal, do the workout, drink the water, and don't just like slog away at the business world.
Such great insight. You were so gracious as well. I read this article that you recently wrote about your health diagnosis that you recently, had, which I can understandably imagine rocked your world. And
Right.
I would love if you could also share with us too how that has also kind of shaped how you structure your day, structure your life, whether it be personally or professionally, because let's face it, right? Like lifes sometimes, right? And as a busy professional, especially in a very deadline driven world, what have been some of those lessons that you've learned along the way too, if you don't mind sharing?
Sure. Yep. I, in December, had a medical emergency. They found a large tumor in my appendix, which had spread to my colon, which turned out to be neuroendocrine cancer, which is a pretty rare type of cancer. And they said it had been growing for maybe 8 to 10 years and had been responsible for dozens of weird symptoms I'd had through the years that were always blamed on perinatal life, being sleep deprived, hormones, you just had a baby, and so on. So I was actually quite relieved to have a very clear reason, and they were able to, in a couple of surgeries, remove all the cancer. So I'm in a journey now of waiting till remission, which is 10 years away because it's a slow growing type of cancer, which is lucky, but also, quite a mindset shift on what is every day about and all those big picture questions you ask yourself when you get cancer. So I did at that time have to basically lean on everyone I knew that would help me and hire help to get through my daily life, to do laundry for 7 people, to run my business. And so I became what my brother calls an expert delegator. He laughs that I have a person for everything. I love hiring neighborhood teenagers to do tons of different things. There is a kid in our neighborhood that scoops dog poop, and he literally like charges $10 a yard, and he can come as frequently as you want or whatever. But this kid is making bank, like, $80 a time if he has 8 houses scooping poop. So these are the kind of people that I love to bring in. And basically, it feels like a little bit of money to do $10, but it's one more task off the invisible load type thing. And I'm able to really focus on my business, which is, really important to maintaining even through the medical journey. So I was glad to have sort of a team in place that helps, with my business, and they were able to step up and help with a lot of day-to-day tasks. But what I learned is, why did it take me so long to ask for help? And why do you have to get cancer to validate asking for help, right? Because busy moms, like business owners, people with kids, they don't really think they should ask for help because we have these narratives like, we put ourselves in this position. We did this. Like, these are our things we wanted and got them. So we should be able to do it by ourselves. But really, it took cancer and having sort of a universally legit reason to ask for help to help me get it. And now I'm not giving it away, because even though I'm healthy now, I want to have those systems in place in case there's overwhelm, in case my business, gets bigger than I can handle, in case I get sick, in case a kid gets sick. So having those safeguards makes me much more comfortable.
That's an amazing story. First of all, I'm so glad you're in a much better place, thank goodness. And it is so interesting. I hear that time and time again. Even for myself, I tell myself sometimes the same stories of, not today, later, I'm okay, just power through this one time. And especially as busy women, entrepreneurs too, there's no shame in asking for help. And it sounds like, now that you've kind of opened that portal, right? It's worth it.
It's great. Yeah. I mean, I feel like if we don't eat out and I use that money on the poop scoop kid or the laundry helper or whatever, it's just a much more effective use of money when it comes to easing the mental load and the mom load that we all talk about. So yeah, I think even people who are like, I don't think I can afford help, should really look again, because I'm telling you, like, teenagers also are sick of like fast food jobs. They want to do meaningful work. I love having teenagers help me with stuff who need after school jobs that's pretty affordable. And, they also want things like letters of recommendation from adults. And, so, it's basically like having interns, but for the other parts of your life.
I love that. That's such a great point. And you make some other fantastic points in that story too. So we will be sure to link it in the show notes because I think it's just such a powerful wake up type of read that I think so many folks can really benefit from. So thank you for kind of digging into that a little bit deeper with us today. And again, we'll have that link in the show notes for anyone to take note and hear about your journey.
Yeah, thank you.
Alex, you are amazing. Where can people look you up, work with you, find you online?
Sure. My website is www.alexandra-frost.com. And they can connect with me on LinkedIn. My name's Alexandra Frost on there. They can follow me on Instagram at Frost Freelance if they want to. They'll probably see a bunch of pictures of my kids because I don't keep up my Instagram as much as, for my clients. It's one of those situations. But yes, I'd love to talk to people who just want to connect, or brands who want to talk about brand positioning or content strategy. And on the journalism side, if anyone has stories they really hope the media could hear about, I'm happy to see those too.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I love following you on LinkedIn. I learn something every time you post there, just like we learned so much together here today. Thank you, Alex. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining me on Grow Your Wealth.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope this episode deposited some useful advice and insights to help you grow your wealth. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future conversations. You can find more resources, episode details, and updates at growyourwealthpodcast.com. And let's keep the conversation going on Instagram. Follow me at Grow Your Wealth Podcast. I'd love to hear your thoughts, questions, or takeaway from today's show. Until next time, remember, burnout is optional. Take care, and I'll see you next week.